Analog horror. You know it, and you love it. And for those of you who don't know and don't love it, I got you. Don't worry. Analog horror is horror that uses the style of found footage or VHS tapes to tell a scary story. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They can range from a whole bunch of different scary settings and spooky characteristics. You might even know some of the most popular ones. But have you ever seen Greylock? Today I'm going to be explaining to you the story of Greylock, because I know if I saw this, haha, I would not click on that, but I did it anyway, and I'm here to share the knowledge. But please go and check out the channel and send it some love. Even if you're too scared to sit through the videos, just send in a nice comment. I'm sure they would really appreciate it. I'll have it linked down below. Also, I do apologize. I sound a little poorly. Getting over a bit of an illness, but it's alright, we're gonna push through. It is time though for my mandatory content warning, so please take care of yourself, my friends. If anything on this list freaks you out, you might want to go check out some of my lighthearted stuff. With all that yapping out of the way, let's jump into the meat. The Greylock channel was created on January 23rd, 2003, so fairly recently, with their first video out of 12 being posted on March 13th of the same year. Now, we have 12 videos to get through, all of them being this VHS tape style. Some of them range from 1 minute all the way up to 33. The channel focuses around a bunch of strange occurrences around Mount Greylock, Massachusetts. I will say, clicking on this channel and looking through the thumbnails, I'm a little shaken up. I'm a little scared. My bones are shaking. So without further ado, let's jump into our first tape. Tape number 1 starts us off. We hear a robotic voice speak to us. It seems to be the AI of some sort of computer system, telling us that all systems are online and asking for our admin password. However, whoever is accessing this computer overrides the system.
Please enter your clearance credentials.
The robotic voice then chimes up once again asking what we would like to do, and whoever is accessing this computer begins to extract some sort of data. All the while, we are being shown what seems to be a disheveled office or some sort of company facility. At the very end of the tape, we're then flashed with some sort of logo. It's the name of the company, Simodyne USA. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Kind of stupid. Our next tape is good old number 2, baby. It starts off with someone driving a car down a very dimly lit road, listening to the radio with some sort of preaching being on.
Dear believers, when men pursue evil, it is evil that they will find.
Saying things like, we are not to enter the thicket in search of the lion. We will pay dearly. For my research, I believe this is a quote from Matthew 13, but my religious friends, please verify me on that.
We are not to enter the thicket in search of the lion.
After driving along this road, it then cuts to the person parking in front of Mount Greylock before getting out of the vehicle. They start to do some adventuring in the middle of the night in the woods, literally doing what that guy on the radio told them not to do. Don't go be searching in the thicket, bruh. Regardless, the person with the camera begins going towards the mountain. The person is walking around in the woods with only a flashlight, and they begin to find splotches of blood, but they continue to move forward. We then get a distorted version of reality, where disturbing and distorted audio can be heard, and we begin seeing more blood from before, with the distorted audio saying this. Were shocked and horrified when they came across what at first they believed to be a mangled carcass of an animal. We get a lot of footage of the person just holding the camera and walking around in the dark woods. Also, hey guys, totally not a separate day, totally not a different week. It's pretty unsettling. It almost feels like someone's watching us. We then go back to the distorted point of view where it seems like a blood trail is leading behind a tree. Honestly, I was so terrified of what could be behind that tree, I started to freak myself out. I'm just a little baby, what can I say? The distorted audio then starts once again. But when the hikers witnessed a human skull, they hurried to contact authorities. A human skull. The vision eventually snaps back, and we see a normal view of this tree once again, but we still have that distorted audio playing in the background. 2 men who wish to remain anonymous say that they've hiked the Mount Greylock trails for over a decade, and while they've certainly seen their bizarre, strange things over the years, they couldn't have possibly been prepared for what they witnessed today. We zoom in on the tree once again, this time focusing on some sort of rectangular object sticking out of the tree, before we cut to driving on this dimly lit road once again. But then the car stops, and its lights begin blinking. We hear some sort of loud banging, and then the car begins to drive off sporadically, with the preaching on the radio from before sounding more demonic by the minute, with the final words being said over the radio being, "The devil has a plan for you." And then the tape just ends. Moving on to tape number 3. This tape seems to be some sort of instructional video showcasing protocols for the United States Army. And once again, that same logo from before, Simodyne USA, pops up. In this tape, it contains information about thought forms. Basically, if a group of people believe in something, or one person believes so strongly, that thing then becomes real. It starts off by taking the form of like a ghost or a phantom, but then eventually, it can become a physical thing. Please add Godzilla to Fortnite. Please add Godzilla to Fortnite. The government plans to create manufactured thought forms to, quote, benefit the American people. They have created these devices that help speed up the process of making a thought form. In these tapes, they talk about how the creatures aren't dangerous. However, when the tape says this, it begins to glitch and start to distort, leading me to believe, what the hell was even that? Leading me to believe that, yeah, these are dangerous. Hello? And when the tape mentions that these thought forms are unable to pass through some sort of protective barrier, the tape glitches once again, hinting that, yeah, they passed through that. Y'all about to see cheeked up Optimus Prime walking down the street, and one of you is to blame. Because it's not me. But in all seriousness, if these thought forms were meant to protect the American people, I can't imagine what they just let loose upon the world. The tape ends with asking the viewer to insert another tape, focusing on some sort of mind exercise so that we too can participate in the making of a thought form. And that brings us to tape number 4. This one starts off by filming the outside of someone's house. It's completely dark outside, and the only thing that's being illuminated is the light through their windows. We can almost see someone moving around in the house. The person with the camera begins walking around outside in the yard, slowly approaching the house. They begin peering into the windows and eventually find an open one. They then proceed to enter the home. The person holding the camera shows us a set of stairs. It leads up to a door. But then, the camera goes black, and all we hear is a woman screaming. The camera is picked back up as the person begins walking through the woods, showing us a lovely picture of the moon. Thank goodness. At least we saw the important part, right? But then the footage gets corrupted and overwritten by some sort of commercial. It's extremely glitchy, but from what I can make out, it's a commercial for someone named Max Headroom. Very fitting because his head looks like it has a lot of room. This footage immediately cuts to an emergency broadcast, informing us that there have been home invasions happening in the area, and that we need to lock all our doors and windows and keep ourselves safe. It tells us that the subjects are armed and dangerous, and to not let anyone in that we immediately don't recognize. The footage then cuts again to someone holding a camera, filming out a crack in their window. We can hear the emergency broadcast on in the background while they're filming the woods from inside their house. They seem to be filming some sort of distant screeching and screaming. It's like they start to multiply as we hear more of this screeching. Suddenly, a gloved hand reaches through the window, and the tape begins to flash. And this is where things start to get dark. I went through all of the flashes frame by frame. I'll show you what I found. This one really stood out to me, but I'm unsure exactly of what it is. It's like some sort of disheveled head. One frame it seems to have flesh, while the next it's like it's removed. And then we get to this frame what seems to be two set of bloody heads, one with its mouth open and the other one that just kind of looks like a blob. I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at here. Maybe you guys will have a better time deciphering this than me. But then the disheveled skull flashes on the screen once again, and the tape ends. Let's move on to tape number 5. This tape starts off with completely gray static, and it stays this way for most of the tape. We hear talking in the background between a girl named Tiffany, which is important, explaining to her OBGYN that she's excited to be a parent, and that she's been together with her partner since high school. It's clear that she's here for an ultrasound appointment, when at 1 minute in, we finally see that the screen is an ultrasound screen, and we get an image of Tiffany's baby. Look at him! He's just chilling! Suddenly, the tape starts to distort, and we hear the cries of a baby. And we hear both girls gasp, and then we're shown this. Tiffany's womb lies empty. The baby's nowhere to be found. She begins to freak out and starts crying hysterically. We then cut to this clip of a newspaper and Tiffany and the baby crying in the background. The newspaper says this: Tiffany, elementary school teacher, 29, of Rose Pine Drive, Adams, died unexpectedly Monday morning. She had suffered tremendously after the sudden loss of her unborn son, Maxwell Marsh. On March 31st, she was unable to live with the heartache any longer. And the video abruptly ends with static once again. For anyone, losing a baby can be horrible. I don't even want to know what it's like. But clearly this is an unusual circumstance. A lot of people are theorizing in the comments that her baby was some sort of thought form, that she wanted a baby so badly she manifested one in her womb. Moving on to tape number 6. This tape starts off with some sort of speech being told by someone named Dr. Bernard at the North American Council of Thought Form in 1981. Before it starts to glitch out demonically and then us being showed the Synodyne USA logo once again. So clearly this company is important somehow. We hear that robotic voice from the beginning giving us instructions once again and asking us for some sort of password. The person at the computer overrides it and begins looking through messages from someone named Paul. Paul seems to be some sort of construction worker digging in tunnels under Greylock Mountain. Also, whoever voice acts for Paul, you did an amazing job. Jesus, very good. Anyways, Paul informs his employer that something weird is going on. He said that people have been in these tunnels before. He's seeing man-made carvings and weird objects and artifacts that look ancient. Paul then calls back again, saying it might be a slow day at work because most of his men are sick as dogs. And he isn't sure what's spreading around, but it's definitely something.
Hey Frank, it's Paul. Just calling to tell you the day might be a bit slower than usual. Unfortunately, a number of the crew are sick as dogs. Not really sure what kind of stomach bugs going around or what, but we'll do our best to pick up slack.
The audio then starts to distort, and Paul says that some of the guys have seen something running around outside in the construction site, but Paul brushes it off as a deer or something. His next message, he explains they had a photographer come in the tunnels and take some pictures of these ancient artifacts. However, he got so sick that they basically had to carry him back to his car. They find some more crazy artifacts down there, and someone on the team used to be an archaeologist and said that some of these artifacts were extremely old. We next get a message from Paul where he's a little bit more serious, and he gets right to the point, stating that something is extremely wrong. Paul is asking the manager named Frank to please call him back because everyone just keeps getting really sick.
Frank, something ain't right here. Crew's getting worse, more sick. I feel okay so far, but I don't know how long that's gonna last.
And he finally saw the thing that was running around in the woods scaring the crew. He said it didn't really look human, but it had a human face. Paul calls back again, this time skipping the formalities, starting off by saying that all of their food is rotten and gone bad, saying how it doesn't make sense because it was stored properly and actually refrigerated. Paul calls back again, this time saying that he saw the creature and it's definitely no animal, and then the screen starts to glitch.
It's Paul. We saw it again. Something out here with us. It's in the woods. And it's watching us, goddammit. It ain't no animal either.
Paul sounds sporadic and stressed beyond belief as his picture on the screen starts to distort, from a smiling Paul to one that looks worried and afraid. Paul said he's gonna set up some hunting cams to hopefully catch whatever this creature is. And then it cuts to the footage of this hunting cam before glitching back to Paul and having the static with red words Unit 13 over the top. Then once again jumping back to the hunting cam footage. We see this sort of green glowing mass pass the camera We're going back to Paul. Paul is extremely frantic and is almost calling for help. He says that most of the crew is sick and unresponsive. They've tried calling everyone's emergency contacts, but the phones just kept ringing and ringing. No answering machine, no one ever picks up. It just rings.
We tried emergency contacts for them, but they just keep ringing. The phones, they just kept ringing and ringing and ringing. Nobody picked up from any number we tried. Nobody picked up. No answer machines either.
They even tried calling 911, but to no avail. The only number that ever picks up to some sort of answering machine is Frank's, the person Paul has been calling. And this idea makes him laugh nervously.
The machine actually picked up. I think I caught whatever's going around.
Now it seems that Paul is sick, and he's explaining his symptoms over the phone. Paul says that he feels like he has to go down the tunnels. He feels like it's the only way to help his crew, and he feels like if he doesn't go down the tunnel, something bad will happen. And then Paul's words start to become inaudible as he starts grunting and growling like some sort of creature. It then cuts back to the hunting cam. Crew, I'm gonna be honest, I was a little afraid here. It's getting a little freaky. And once again in this hunting cam footage, we see that green orb start to come close to the camera, and the footage start to warp. And now we hear Paul's final message. The final message from Paul is just screaming and struggling. No words can be made out or heard. And then the call goes dark. Even the computer screen we've been looking at, listening to all of Paul's calls, starts to glitch and distort. It goes dark for a second, and then the music starts to slowly build. We get a timecode error, and then we're shown the hunting cam footage for one last time. We see some sort of face looking at us. It's not quite human. It almost looks like a mask with a bunch of cracks in it. And we've seen this before. Once, in the tape where someone breaks in through the window, and twice, when Tiffany's baby goes missing. This mask flashed for a brief second. Could this be one of the thought forms who broke free? Not quite sure. Welcome everyone to tape number 7. We are more than halfway through. How does it feel? This tape starts off with a broadcasting of the local late night news hosted by Dawn Wright. It's referencing to an earlier tape talking about the home invasions, that the criminals were part of an anti-America militia group. But when he says the name of the group, the tape starts to go static.
Anti-American militia group operating out of Western Massachusetts called...
The broadcaster says that all the perpetrators have been caught and that everything is fine, and the police are releasing statements to calm down the public. However, the broadcast is hijacked, and then we're shown some footage of infant conjoined twins, and it's a little bit disturbing because they seem to be in some kind of distress. And then it flickers back to Dawn, the news reporter, with this text flashing on the screen. These events are only the tip of the iceberg, says Jim Melgream, a former police officer who now works as a private investigator and hosts a radio show centered around government transparency and accountability. There are horrifying reports of people, grown healthy adults, becoming deformed, growing extra limbs, teeth growing out of their scalp, people developing severe mental conditions, or even sickness doctors have never seen. After that, we're shown a very disturbing image of the newscaster Don, with his face all disheveled and his skin torn to bits, with the word liar next to him in red. And that's the end of the tape. Moving on to tape number 8. Tape 8 starts off with the same distorted picture from the previous tape. We can hear a man yelling at 2 other producers from the broadcast. This angry man is Alan. He continues expressing his confusion for what happened and how they could have been possibly hijacked. One of the producers he's talking to says that he hasn't been able to get in contact with Dawn, the news anchor from the broadcast we saw in the previous tape. Alan orders this producer to go check Dawn's house and threatens to fire Dawn for the no-show, before a robotic voice interrupts us, telling us that the file we're trying to access has been destroyed.
What a complete... They made us look like a joke. Speaking of which, Don, where the is he? I cannot get hold of him, and he needs to get in here and read a statement to help clean up this mess.
Warning.
The screen then fades to static. The robotic voice speaks again, saying a mysterious file has been detected. It says that this file shouldn't even exist, and asks if we want to proceed. The person at the computer pauses for a second before they continue. We hear an audio recording from someone named Arnold. He was working on the construction site at Greylock Mountain, the one our dear friend Paul unfortunately had his demise at. Arnold expresses that he's recording because he feels that his life is in danger.
I'm recording this because I believe my life is in danger, and I likely don't have a lot of time left.
Arnold says that he feels he doesn't have a lot of time left. And from his time at Greylock Mountain, he discovered there's artifacts in those tunnels from all around the world from different time periods, dating so far back that some of these ancient civilizations haven't even been fully studied yet. He clarifies that it's all authentic, even though at first he thought it was part of some kind of joke. Then he starts to get fearful, expressing that it doesn't make sense for this place to be so culturally important to all these different civilizations. Arnold begins saying that all of these artifacts left were actually offerings to some sort of being, and when he says the word offering, the screen begins to glitch.
All of it was there purposely, as offerings.
Before we cut to a screen of the broadcasting station, telling us what's coming up next, including a segment with Dawn Wright on hiking on Greylock Mountain, and an episode of something here that I can only compare to Grey's Anatomy, because what do you mean? Episode 733? It then cuts to footage of two planets colliding, maybe some sort of space documentary, before it begins to get staticky and we hear a phone call. It's a phone call to 911. It's one of the producers from the beginning of the tape, reporting a break-in at his coworker's house, Dawn Wright.
Adams Police Department, Dispatcher Carey speaking.
Yes, I'm calling to report a break-in at my coworker's house.
The 911 operator asks this producer, is anyone hurt? And Liam, the producer, stays silent for a moment. And the operator asks again.
Tell me, is anybody hurt? Liam, are you still with me?
Yes, sorry.
Is anybody hurt?
Yes.
We're then shown the disheveled and torn apart body of Dawn Wright. Fly high, King. Fly high. We then suddenly cut back to Arnold, talking about how he thinks this spot in Greylock Mountain is some sort of sacrifice hotspot, and he expresses his fear that something is calling to him ever since he's been there. He says he can't eat and can't sleep because whatever is calling to him is so strong, it's telling him to return to the mountain. This recording of Arnold ends with him refusing some sort of deal, saying he's not willing to put a price on his sanity. Finally, we cut to some Greylock event survivors. Now hold on everyone, it's about to get a little freaky. Buckle in. We're shown these survivors and how much they've changed since the incident, and as we go on, they start to look less and less human, almost like zombies. As we go down the list of survivors, each one is completely unique. For example, this patient will only sit up randomly and begin to projectile vomit before laying back down and going into some sort of comatose state. Some patients are extremely violent and will attack on sight. Even some express cannibalistic tendencies. We see these happy photos of guys before they turn into monsters, where in some cases the only thing the doctors can think to do is to euthanize him. For example, good old Scott here looks nice and friendly and he has a friendly demeanor, but in reality, he simply just craves human flesh. He partially consumed 6 staff members before he was detained. And as this list of survivors go on, it keeps getting more and more supernatural. Like some patients having the power to manipulate and have some sort of mind hold over other individuals. After going over the survivors, we finally cut back to Arnold. He's expressing that there's so many weird things going on in Greylock and that they all must be connected somehow. Home invasions, apparently bodies falling from the sky, not to mention all the stuff that happened at the dig site. There's clearly something going on here. And this is the first time we're hearing mentions of this bodies from the sky. Arnold expresses that he feels a little bit better, and he realizes that he does sound super paranoid, but recording really eased his mind. And right before he's about to end the recording, we hear a door open, and Arnold begins to freak out.
Honestly, I feel much better just talking about it. This can't be. Oh my god, that's a basement door.
He says that was his basement door, and he keeps repeating no, no over and over again. We can hear him reach for the camera, and then suddenly we have some footage. He says that he's hiding inside his closet. He has his files and the tape recorder running, and he says if something happens to him, to take all the evidence to someone named Jim. And then we hear a disturbing laughter, which seems to be from a child. They laugh and say no. The voice then distorts, exclaiming, "Someone please help me." Then we also hear what sounds to be police radio static and birds chirping. And then we hear a voice right outside the closet saying, "Come on out. It's the police."
Come on out, it's the police.
Before we get a jump scare, it appears to be the masked creature we've been seeing throughout all of these tapes. This by far has been my favorite tape. It was so engaging, and all the voice acting and the pictures and the effects. I'll eat that up, I will. But it's time to move on to tape number 9. Also, if you guys have noticed my outfit and hair changing, no you didn't. Tape 9 starts off with that familiar robotic voice, before showing us a broadcast involving the National Access Initiative. It's some sort of program to send families and households some sort of protective technology, like telephones, flashlights, and smoke alarms. Things like that. As well as we get a news flash of John F. Kennedy and his assassination. And apparently, also his refusal to Simodyne, that company that has been brought up a few other times. Throughout these tapes and these broadcasts, we see some sort of footage from what appears to be the inside of people's houses. We even get footage from someone presumably sleeping. It appears that none of these people know they're being watched. By, we can only assume, Simodyne. We then get a speech from the president and CEO of Simodyne about the importance of everyone having technology in their home to keep them safe. Midway through his very moving speech, we get a distorted view, and then we start to hear him talking to someone about the deal he was trying to make with John F. Kennedy. Apparently, Kennedy didn't like Simodyne's plan very much. The man talking expresses his anger towards Kennedy, that Kennedy is going to expose his whole plan. The CEO says this statement, "There are plenty of snakes in the grass, and it's time that Kennedy got bit."
There are a lot of snakes in the grass. And it's about time that Kennedy got bit.
Maybe alluding to the CEO in this company having something to do with Kennedy's assassination. We then cut to some graffiti on the wall, alluding that the International Access Initiative is a trap, and that they're watching and listening, before the footage cuts back to the CEO. We then cut to footage of what seems to be a dark shadow standing outside of someone's closet, before the closet door slowly starts to open. The few more disturbing clips mix in between. Now, buckle up everyone. To me, what's coming up next is the most frightening part of this analog horror. I have never been got so bad. We cut to some footage of what seems to be a little girl's bedroom. It's quiet, clearly dark out, before this disgusting, nasty creature emerges behind some of this little girl's stuff. This creature begins whispering to her, asking the little girl named Katie to wake up.
Wake up, Katie. Hello?
The light in the room flickers, and then the monster disappears from view. The little girl named Katie wakes up and begins asking if anyone's there. The creature then responds, "I'm over here, Katie."
I'm over here, Katie.
Oh, there you are. Who are you?
Katie then asks the creature, "What are you?" And this creature responds with, "I'm your imaginary friend."
I'm your imaginary friend.
Katie tells this creature, "I don't remember imagining you." And the creature responds again with, "Well, you must have, because I'm here." Katie then expresses that she doesn't have her glasses on and can't see him very well. The creature then says that they have Katie's glasses and clean them up for her, so they're all shiny and new. This creature then says to come over towards them and they'll hand Katie her glasses. The creature says to Katie to reach out and he'll put her glasses in her hand. And then all of a sudden a grotesque looking creature lunges at her, and it's nothing like we've ever seen before. This creature has long, spindly fingers. Low-key giving salad fingers, not gonna lie. But its eye sockets are empty. It's covered in blood and has this huge gaping mouth. The next thing we see is Katie's room all covered in blood. And the final shot of this tape is an answering machine. Oh guys, we've made it to the last 3 tapes. These last 3 are full of content. As you can tell, this video's taken quite a while. So thanks for sticking with me. Let's get through this. This tape starts off with someone walking around the woods, presumably around Greylock Mountain. The person with the camera then finds a dead rat and proceeds to take it with him. We then cut back to the answering machine at the very end of tape 9. The man on the phone speaking through the answering machine is named Alex, and he's trying to get in touch with someone named Tiffany. If you remember, Tiffany is from one of the first ever tapes. She's the one who lost the baby. Alex leaves a message to Tiffany asking her to please call him back.
Hey, babe. I'm just checking in. Could you please give me a call as soon as you can? Don't worry about work either, please. You're way more important, okay?
We then cut to a police interrogation room where Alex is sitting across the table from some sort of detective. Alex expresses that he was very distraught from losing their son, but he's more worried about Tiffany, how she seemed to keep getting worse and worse. He says that he would come home on his lunch breaks from work to just sit and check on her. He states that she would always pick up the phone when Alex calls, but on that day, she didn't pick up.
But this time, on that day, she didn't pick up.
Before we hear some sort of laughing, and the screen turned to static. We then get this shot of what seems to be some sort of demonic ritual with really weird moaning and wailing. Then again, cut back to the answering machine where we hear Alex leaving one of these messages for Tiffany. He explains that he's very worried and he's going to go ahead and head home to check on Tiffany. After that, our screen then changes to the Massachusetts office of the chief medical examiner. That's a mouthful. Off screen, we see someone typing in their password and login for this computer. It then cuts to the doctor in charge of examining Tiffany's body. And that's when the truth is revealed. That's when we really see what happened to Tiffany. We see a picture of Tiffany's body. There seems to be some sort of black liquid leaking from her eyes and mouth. And her eyes, in the doctor's words, are fully retracted. She also has some sort of strange marking carved into her abdomen. The doctor finishes up his statement by saying the cause of death is still unknown. It cuts to a recording between Tiffany, at this time is only 6 years old, and a doctor with his face and name scratched out. He seems to be some kind of therapist, asking Tiffany if she's seeing them again. Tiffany says that they're everywhere, and then the recording cuts again.
Are you seeing them again?
Yes.
Can you see them right now?
Yes.
Where are they? Where are they, Tiffany?
They're everywhere.
This time they're talking about Tiffany in the morgue, presumably that examiner from before, talking about how after Tiffany's body was put away in the cooler, one of his staff said that she heard a woman crying.
I shrugged off her remark and let her leave early, telling her she was likely stressed or overtired, and I continued cleaning up on my own. I didn't dare to tell her that I heard it as well.
He said that he then sent the nurse home and explained that she must have just been tired. He didn't tell the nurse this, but admitted it to the recording. He could hear the crying too. We then see the security footage and we hear the woman's wails, presumably Tiffany. The tape then snaps back to the recording of Tiffany and this mysterious doctor. The doctor is leading young Tiffany through some sort of mental exercise. As the doctor is leading Tiffany through this, he's explaining rooms and details down to the very T. He's explaining her own childhood bedroom in very weird detail. No doctor should know the exact stickers you have on your childhood vanity. While the doctor is walking her through this mental exercise, he then begins to say, "There's something in your room that hasn't been there before."
And that's when you can see something different that's never been there before. Tell me what you see.
It's a door next to my window.
That's right.
Tiffany then responds with, "There's a door next to my window." This is where things start to take a very sinister turn. Tiffany expresses that she's scared, but the doctor instructs her to open the door. Tiffany says when she opens this door, it leads to a small room, and that there's someone in there. The doctor corrects Tiffany. "There's no one in there. You're alone."
Somebody's in there.
No, Tiffany, you're alone.
No. There's someone here. He's facing away from me. He's standing and tall. He's very tall.
Tiffany, you are alone.
Tiffany says that this person is very tall, but yet again the doctor persists that no, she's alone. The doctor tries to get rid of the man from Tiffany's mind by saying when he snaps his fingers, the man will be gone and she'll be alone. But this only seems to upset whatever is in Tiffany's mind. Tiffany says that the man begins shaking and he begins cracking.
The man's shaking. His body is cracking.
Okay, Tiffany, I'm going to count down from 5. When I snap my fingers, you will return to the real world. 5. You're feeling more awake
He's
now.
turning around.
4. Everything around you is becoming
He's
hazy.
looking at me. He sees me.
3, Tiffany, you can feel the chair you're sitting in again.
While the doctor is still frantically trying to bring her back to reality, the recording then flashes and glitches. The next thing we see on this tape is the man from the very beginning who collected the dead rat. It shows him cutting the rat open, revealing a tape that's been hidden inside. We get a message with a symbol carved in Tiffany's abdomen. They're speaking to someone named Jim. The person then says that none of their questions will be answered, and that they are just providing information and it's up to Jim whether to take it or not. Before they tell us what this information is, it cuts again to the body storage cam, where Tiffany's body is being held. We start to hear banging on one of the containment units, and then all of a sudden the door swings open, and we hear Tiffany crying. A disturbing face starts to peek out from behind the door. Then it glitches to a disturbing, distorted face of Tiffany's. The tape then starts to glitch, and we see a distorted version of Tiffany's face. So clearly this tape states that Tiffany is an important piece of this puzzle. Moving on to the second to final tape. We are doing this, boys. This tape starts off with a broadcasting channel telling us at 3 a.m. inside these walls we'll be doing basement renovations. Ooh. Before the tape starts to distort, and we see someone holding a camera in what we can presume is their home. They show footage of a door, and when opened, it reveals a room. A tiny padded room. They then show us that the door can be closed and locked with a giant plank of wood. The footage is also corrupted with this sort of demonic ritual going on. The same one in the last tape about Tiffany. Apparently this tape has been recorded over so many times that the previous recordings are starting to bleed through. The person then proceeds to lock themselves inside that tiny padded room before placing down a tape player. However, I learned that these types of tape can only really record up to 43 minutes. So whatever this person is trying to capture, it's gonna happen in the next 43 minutes. However, when they do press the button, we hear this clearly distressed, whiny voice that's extremely hard to make out. And then the tape just ends. And guys, we've made it to the last and final tape. The last one is the longest one so far, being 33 minutes. This tape starts off with a warning, stating that this tape is for the sole use of someone named Charlotte. And after a few more warnings, where actually I find stuff like this really unique and interesting, it's a good way to let your audience know that there's some visual effects coming up that some may have sensitivities to without breaking the immersion and doing like a warning beforehand. So I think this is really clever and a good way to keep people safe. Anyways, the tape states that this is a government tape and unauthorized viewings will result in severe punishment. We also get a warning that whoever views this tape may have a heightened sensory state. We're told we need some equipment for viewing this tape, such as the headset it includes and a workbook. Then we get into the screen waking your subconscious. This tape is intended to help unlock the deepest potential of your mind. We're given a checklist before getting into the experience. We're given 10 seconds to make sure we're ready before we pass the point of no return. Once the program begins, we're instructed to stare at the screen for 30 seconds. Before it begins flashing red. I'm gonna show it here, but I've turned the saturation down a lot just because even for me, watching this is very difficult, but after this we move on to section 2, priming, which is a little word puzzle. We're gonna be shown a set of words and we have to pick the one that doesn't quite fit with the rest. For example, I picked rope and blood for these. Before being shown set 3, we get a flash of some images. All you cherish will be remade. As well as this whole time, we can see some sort of figure creeping up in the background. Here they have long spindly fingers and glowing blue eyes. We also see a picture of a woman with 2 dogs and a newspaper announcing a new rescue for dogs. Moving back to the word test, we finally see set 3. I chose visible before the screen goes red and the figure in the background disappears. And then we see the words, love contorts her flesh and bone. Set 4. I chose improved. The screen then flashes with the words, "Where is your daughter, Jim?" And if you remember, Jim has been brought up a few times. When Arnold was hiding in the closet right before his death, he mentions Jim, and again on the tape hiding inside the rat. We also see a missing poster for someone named Charlotte. For set 5, I chose you. The screen then goes black, and we're done with the priming. We then get some camera footage from what only I can presume is Paul. If you remember, Paul was the main constructor working on Greylock Mountain. We then get a warning screen telling us that the device has detected unauthorized altercations, and we need to stop playing this tape immediately. The tape now takes a dark red theming instead of the blue, and we move on to section 3. Conditioning, seeing how we react to high stress and high anxiety situations. We're going to be shown a set of facial expressions with the word of an emotion on top. Our job in phase 1 is to say the word on top of the face. Phase 2 is the same thing but disregarding the facial expression and just reading the word. Phase 3 is ignoring the word and stating the facial expression, but the faces start to contort. Before moving on to phase 4, doing the same exact thing. The tape begins to glitch, showing a huge array of faces before we get a face with the word changed written over top, and then human teeth and gums start to appear in the mask. Clearly, there's a theme of changing. Then we're shown security footage of a house and the dog sanctuary before it starts to glitch, and we can see a nasty creature made of flesh and bones entering the dog sanctuary. We hear dogs barking in the background before the lights go out, and everything is silent. We then move to the home screen of EverVigil monitoring system. Then we see a security alert pop-up box pop up, and someone with the name T. Erickson type in their username and password. They call the property manager to inform them of the potential break-in. And the property manager just happens to be Charlotte. Charlotte talks to the security officer on the phone, saying that her father bought the security system for her, and she's starting to get agitated because they keep calling her in the middle of the night with false alarms. The security officer proceeds to check the footage because Charlotte keeps insisting that everything's fine and this happens all the time, and that she would really just like to go back to bed because she has important things to do tomorrow morning.
But I'm looking out the window right now, and everything seems fine. I mean, the power's out, but it literally goes out all the time over there, so I'm just gonna go flip the breaker.
Ms. Melgren, we strongly advise against going outside or into the kennels, especially with the power outage. We can call to have a police officer dispatched, and they can make sure it's safe before you...
Wait, hold on. Is there any way we don't have to do that? I have to be up at 6, and the last time it took them over an hour to get here. For nothing, please.
But the security officer, while trying to check the footage, keeps getting error messages. The security officer is really reluctant. However, Charlotte eventually persuades him to just let her leave the house and flip the breaker quickly, without involving the police because it's really late and she just wants to get back to bed. The security officer allows this because they're still on the phone. However, while she's doing this, he's looking through the footage, and we can see some sort of large creature moving on the roof of the dog sanctuary. But the security officer misses this and still allows Charlotte to go outside. We then see the creature just standing there outside the door. He's just standing there, menacingly. And finally, the security officer notices and rechecks the footage. He mentions that the previous false alarms were not false, and something has been stalking around her property for a while now.
Honestly, I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at here. It seems like the camera's glitched out or something, but the previous calls you've been getting, they weren't false alarms. Yeah, again, I'm not sure what's going on here, but something's been stalking around your property for a while now. I'm not sure how the previous people who called you didn't notice.
Okay, something like what, an animal or?
No, well, I don't know actually. I just think you should go back to your house, okay? Please.
Okay, yeah, you win. Let me just make sure that the dogs are okay, and I'll head back over. They're just right here.
This actually does get to Charlotte, and she begins to freak out a little, agreeing with the security officer. She says she's just gonna check on the dogs and go right back home. They're still on the phone while Charlotte quickly pops in to check on the dogs, but she starts freaking out, saying that something's very wrong. The dogs aren't moving. Not even their eyes. They're just standing still, almost like they're dead.
Charlotte? What's going on?
The dogs aren't moving. They're all just standing here.
Well, it's late, so maybe they're just tired or something. But let's just get you back.
That's not it. They're just standing here, not moving. Like, at all. Like, not even their eyes. It's like... Oh my God. It's like they're dead, but they're not.
What the...
What?
Miss Melgren, you need to get out of there and return to your house immediately. I'm sending your information to the police right now.
What's going on?
Get the hell out of the kennel now!
The security officer then sees the creature entering the dog kennel. He begins yelling at her to get out immediately, and Charlotte tries, but something rips the flashlight out of her hand, and she says she can no longer see. At this point, she's begging for help, saying she's so sorry. The security officer sends the police her location immediately, and it says they'll arrive in 3 minutes. He tells her to feel around the walls until she finds a door or window, but as the security officer is flipping through the footage, we see that all doors and windows mysteriously vanish. She's trapped. And on this call, we can hear what I can only describe as like monster moans and wails. But Charlotte says she does eventually find a door. She locks herself in a completely dark room. She says nothing is making sense. She says she doesn't know if she's gone blind or if it really is just this dark.
I can't tell if it's really this dark or if I'm blind.
Breathe, Charlotte. Breathe. You need to try and stay as calm as you possibly can.
We hear the creature approach her as the security officer and her are completely silent. The creature finally moves on before Charlotte says, "I think my skin is moving." And then we hear her screams. They start to fade away, sounding like she's being dragged away from her phone.
I think my skin is moving.
The screen then cuts to black, and we're right back at the tape, telling us it's time for testing. We answer some true or false questions while the creature is coming ever so closer. For example, it'll say, "Is it true this video system is physically changing our brain?" And it'll say true and explain why. The tape goes on as this creature quickly approaches, the final question being to open our mind to darkness and shadows, with the tape saying to open the black door, similar to how Tiffany was instructed to open the black door in her mind as a child. And now our testing is complete. Moving on to section 5. The final section, to create a connection point between your conscious and unconscious mind. It tells us to not look away or shield our eyes for any reason. Then it glitches and we see a gross skull with glowing eyes as the screen goes red. Then we're shown some psychedelic clips before getting a clip of a person talking, but it's almost impossible to figure out what's being said. We then get footage of someone filming from inside their shower, showing their bathroom door slowly opening. Then we see a bunch of faces speaking, and again, almost unable to tell what they're saying at all. And I did try it. I don't even know how to decode this. And then we see what seems to be one of these creatures staring at us through a vent, and footage of the Greylock mountain tunnels, I presume. And we're about to see the best part of this ARG so far. We see the activation complete screen from the tape, and then police body cam footage, investigating the call that was sent for Charlotte. The officer slowly moves down into the basement. The officer saying it's so dark. And then we hear a noise. He says it smells awful down here. And then we see it. We see Charlotte, or what's left of her. She seems to be alive, mangled with dogs from her kennel. Her arms are stretched and contorted. And unfortunately, I think I am gonna have to blur this because it is intense. But she also appears to have gone blind, like she stated in the phone call. It looks like she was kind of turning into a dog herself. And of course, the officer runs away as fast as he can. And then the tape ends. And my friends, that's all of Greylock so far. Thank you guys for sticking around through this crazy. Yeah, this is one of the best analog horrors I've ever seen. To be fair, I haven't seen many. The voice acting and the visuals, even the realistic tape erosion, the live action clips were done so well. To me, this is one of the realest feeling analog horrors out there. The characters and situations felt really reasonable as well. Like nothing felt weird, like people doing stupid things to move the plot along. Every character's reactions to the weird stuff happening I felt was very reasonable and could possibly happen. Like Charlotte leaving her home and never calling the police was not her being stupid. She had valid reasons. But alright, we're gonna do a little bit of theorizing for those who want to stick around. But if you just came here for the story of Greylock, thank you so much. You're so cool. Anyways, here's my ideas. I'm not sure if there was some sort of like ancient god underneath Greylock Mountain that when the government started doing these experiments on thought forms, they accidentally awakened and brought to life due to the decades of offerings and worshipping. I also believe that there's at least 3 main thought forms. The one with the mask, the one with the really long fingers, and then the one made of flesh and bone. It's even mentioned that in the tape, the training video T2 was intended for the sole use of Charlotte. it says its purpose was to alter or recondition her brain. I thought it was interesting because maybe they recovered her from the basement and she's still alive and they're trying to help her get back to normal. And Jim is also involved in this somehow. I mean, Charlotte is his daughter. Maybe that's what got him involved in all this in the first place, trying to figure out how to save her or help her. It's also mentioned Katie, the girl with the imaginary friend. She states that was her imaginary friend from that weird hospital with the weird doctors, which makes me think that maybe Katie went to the same kind of therapy that Tiffany did. And could Charlotte have possibly gone there too? I also think that maybe each thought form kind of has their own abilities. Like the masked one can mimic voices, and the long finger one can talk as well. Maybe even travel through TV screens or electronics. And I think the skeleton one can somehow manipulate environments physically. But honestly, I'm so excited to see the comments of this video. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your theories. Give me it all. I haven't seen many analog horrors, but this is my favorite so far, and I do plan to cover more, so please leave your suggestions down in the comments. I would love to see them. Thank you guys for joining me on this extremely long video. This might be the longest video I have on my channel. You can literally see my hair growing in real time. It is time for a trim. I apologize, but I appreciate it if you've made it with me this far. Thanks for hanging out with me. So, same time next week.